What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's tons of news to go over. Hopefully all of you enjoyed the Detroit coverage here this week. It was a lot of fun to cover it. It was a really exciting show. There's been Detroit shows in the past where it's been a lot of EV stuff and a lot of crossovers and been a little bit of a bummer. There was some of that at this year's show, but I mean it was so exciting to have the GT500 revealed, and then right after that you have the Supra revealed, and that was also very exciting, and actually I think my favorite of the show. I think the GT500 was a little bit of a buzzkill just because we still don't have specs and everyone was expecting that. We mostly knew what it looked like already, so that wasn't any major revelation, honestly, at least for me personally, and I was looking forward to actually getting all the numbers, and we didn't get all the numbers. We got vague 700 plus, ratings that we've already had for over a year now, and, so I think I will be excited once we actually know the numbers for the GT500. In the meantime, it looks very cool, it sounds very promising, it sounds amazing too, but it's still just, we'll see just how amazing it is whenever, we know whether it's 701 horsepower or 799 horsepower or somewhere in between. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I have a few stories here about the Supra, some follow-up from Detroit, and I always try and keep these weekly updates very factual and just going over the news. I try not to rant too much or give my own personal opinion on things a whole lot, but I am just so overwhelmed by the negativity on the Supra comments. It's just amazing how in the entire social media verse there, it's just, everyone seems to have something to complain about. And I mean, I agree that I wish they offered a manual, and I have a story coming out here, the very first story this week, about how a manual is still a possibility. But all the other complaints people have, I just don't get. People that said they wanted something unique that wasn't jointly developed. Toyota already did that. It's called the LC500, and it's $100,000. People think that you can have, GTR levels of performance for BRZ prices, and it's just everyone's expectations for this car were so unrealistic. I think it's fantastic. I look at it as the faster BRZ that I've always wanted. I always said this is a great platform. With the Supra, it's basically very similar dimensions to the BRZ, but you have that extra power. And so to me, that's fantastic. I'm excited. And even if, you don't like the styling, you wish it was faster, it was too expensive, or whatever your complaints are with the Supra, I mean, I get it. Everyone has different opinions and we're all entitled to them, but at least be happy that a new sports car is introduced. I mean, as you'll see with all the other stories this week, guess what's coming in the future? Autonomous electric crossovers. That's what everyone is rushing to spit out as fast as they possibly can. So Toyota, I mean, they could have just been content selling RAV4s, Camrys, and Corollas, forever and ever, and just, reaping all that money. But, they're enthusiasts. Mr. Toyota himself, the CEO, is an enthusiast. He likes going racing, and, they committed to doing 3 sports cars. They have the 86, the Supra, and there's still another one coming. What other luxury company is even caring about sports cars and then is caring so much to have 3 of them? And I don't know, it just blew my mind that, a new sports car has arrived and everyone's upset. I get it's because the Supra and all the expectations around that name, but it still is a new sports car in an age where sports cars are getting more and more rare. They're not selling. Just the fact that this car was even greenlit for production is a huge miracle on its own, that this thing even exists. It's not going to make Toyota any money, almost certainly. It's going to sell in low numbers. It's going to be expensive to produce. I mean, the LFA, they actually lost money on every one they sold. These, you don't make money on these things unless you're Lamborghini or something and have these huge profit margins with extremely expensive stuff. But being competitive at a price like this, 50 grand, it's not going to be a moneymaker. So, to get this approved through the, the bean counters and everything is, I think, way more work. People don't realize, the development cost to develop something like this. Even when you share costs with a company, it is so expensive and they got to recoup all that. You're not just paying for the materials that make up the car. You're paying for all the development and engineering hours and years that went into that. And it's just, anyway, I will move on to the actual news stories this week, but I just had to get that off my chest because it really was irking me, but I will continue to move on here. So as far as the Supra though, we do have hope for a manual Supra, and so this report comes from Auto Guide, and they're reporting about a roundtable with journalist at Detroit, where the Supra's chief engineer was talking about the possibility of a manual. And so it kind of goes back and forth a little bit, where he first says, I'm very aware of the requests and needs for a manual transmission out there, but with new sports automatic transmissions, I am very satisfied with the results of the performance of this transmission setup, or transmission system. It is completely different from any other automatic that has been released. If there is a persistent, overwhelming demand still for a manual transmission, a sports car in itself will inherently improve and continue to improve when those kinds of things will be considered. So he was talking through a translator here, so not perfectly easy to understand. But basically, he's saying that it could come in future iterations, or, be added for new model years, something to maybe keep it fresh. Maybe the first model year is automatic only, and then a manual could come, next year or something like that. So it still is a possibility, because he said, obviously, if the market demand is there, it would be something that would have to be considered. It depends on the right timing. He also added that manual transmission Supras have been in test development phases, and it's been developed. So this is something that is, it works. They have working prototypes. This is something they're actively already working on, and so, and Road and Track did have some additional remarks that he said that they're reporting on, where he said he even saw a poll on a forum where thousands of people were voting for yes, they wanted a manual. So he even is getting the message that yes, we see that there is demand for this and we're looking into it. But then he kind of went off the rails a little bit. He said, I don't want to sound too businessy, but I also need to support the 86. Looking at the role of the 86 and the role of the Supra, I want to differentiate, make sure they each have their own identity. If the Supra had a manual transmission, there's nowhere for the 86 to go. That part doesn't make any sense to me, because clearly the 86 is the slower and the cheaper vehicle. Even if the Supra had a manual, it doesn't mean that people be like, oh, you know what? I really want a manual, but now the Supra has it, I'm not going to buy an 86. I don't think there's going to be many cross shoppers. The only people that are going to end up in an 86 while looking at the Supra are people who can't afford the Supra. Otherwise, you're going to go for the faster, newer vehicle. So I don't see any kind of overlap there. I think, they have very different missions. Also, the Supra is a lot heavier than the 86. The 86 is like, 2,800 pounds. The Supra is just under 3,400 pounds. So again, completely different driving dynamics, different engine, all that type of stuff. So that part I don't agree with, but everything else I can certainly understand what he's saying. Then Toyota's North American Executive Vice President also added, we're going to respond to consumers, but then reminded everyone that consumers, as far as other vehicles go, don't buy new manual transmission cars. So again, this comes back to what I've said in the past. If you want to save the manuals, you need to go out and actually buy a manual transmission vehicle, whatever it is. That's how you send the message to them. Buying used cars doesn't tell anybody that you want a manual. That just means that people are buying used cars. The only way to justify it from, again, the accountant's standpoint is to buy a new one and see that they're selling new manual transmission vehicles and should continue to offer more. Another way, if you do really want a manual Supra, I would suggest probably going to your dealership and showing them you're actually legitimately able to afford a Supra but are waiting for a manual. Have them know that, and then they can forward that on to corporate, because, of course, corporate wants to make their dealers happy. And if the dealers are like, oh, we're missing out on sales because you don't have a manual, what's going on? That could send an even stronger message than, just posting on a forum or something. So, just a little, tidbit there. But anyway, interesting to see that, this is a possibility, so all hope is not lost for a manual Supra. And personally, I think that'd be great. We do also know there's a faster Supra coming at some point down the road. The GRMN version most likely is what it'll be called. That's a potential candidate for a manual transmission as well, maybe for just that version. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to see that report. The other little bit of Supra news here is that Toyota Gazoo Racing's website for the Japanese market revealed the other two engines the Supra is going to get in Japan. They're both the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo motors from BMW. The first has 197 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque. And so they're selling that one in Japan, and that's one that, with the chief engineer talking about overlap, that really overlaps. You have basically the same horsepower as the 86, although you do have way more torque with 236 versus the 86 having 151 pound-feet. So big jump in torque there, but but still could have a little bit of overlap, but they're selling that one in Japan. The other is a 258 horsepower, 295 pound-feet version, and that's the one that we are rumored to be getting here in the States, but according to Motor One, who talked with Jack Hollis, who's Toyota's North American Vice President, Toyota has no plans to bring the 4-cylinder to the States currently, and believes the 6-cylinder is the best engine for the vehicle, especially here in America. Everyone wants more horsepower, so I can certainly see their standpoint on that. But I guess when they developed the Supra, they obviously developed it around the 6-cylinder. That's what Supras have been in the past. And so it keeps with that consistency as well. And so I think that's why they're planning on it. But he did add that, like with the manual, if there's enough demand for it and people are begging and pleading for their dealers to have a 4-cylinder version, then they could bring it over. Obviously, it fits, it's available, it works, it's been sold in Japan, so they could bring it over here if they wanted to. So again, just comes down to figuring out what people want and what people are actually going to buy. There's a difference between saying you want it in the YouTube comments and actually being like, yeah, I got, approved financing or 50 grand cash to buy whatever, and actually going and doing it. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to see that. Funny thing related to the Supra is after the Toyota press conference where they revealed the 4.1 second 0 to 60, BMW quickly revised their performance claims. So originally the M40i version of the new Z4, which gets the 382 horsepower version of this engine, BMW has always been pretty conservative, and they claimed 4.4 seconds 0 to 60, but obviously with the less powerful Supra doing 4.1, now BMW is like, all right, gloves are coming off, and now they're saying 3.9 seconds is the official 0 to 60 for the Z4 M40i. And so this should tell you how much BMW and Toyota worked together on this. They originally agreed on some of the basics, and obviously BMW supplying a lot of the mechanical bits, but then they went their separate ways with the development of this vehicle. And now it seems like they're actually competing against each other. And BMW doesn't want the Supra to have all the limelight or to outperform their Z4. And so that's why the BMW gets some of the nicer interior stuff. It gets the faster motor for now, at least. It gets, the faster 0 to 60 times. Like BMW's insistent on being the top dog. And even despite them having this partnership, it sounds like it's already getting competitive. So we'll see. I'm sure this could be an ongoing drama for, the future here. But anyway, interesting to now see that revised number. Some other BMW news is they revealed the 2027 series this week, although not at Detroit. They were not at the Detroit show at all. And so anyway, this was just an online reveal. They revealed, and it looks good. I think a lot of people are really hating that grille, which is a lot bigger and more blingy. It's actually, to be exact, 40% bigger than the previous grille in the 7 Series. And this is actually just a heavy refresh of the existing car, not an all-new model. And so, the biggest changes are here out on the outside with a new front bumper, new rear bumper. You see the new slimmer headlights there in the front and with laser light technology available, and then in the back there you get the full width LED tail lamps and a few other tweaks as well for that bumper. And it looks great to me, but the grille, is definitely, I think, a little much. The interior, though, gets this new digital gauge cluster as well as a slightly changed steering wheel. They also added more insulation and thicker laminated glass than before to give it a quieter ride. And that's about it. Otherwise, the interior is pretty much the same as the current 7 Series, but still obviously very nice and luxurious there. Mechanically, the 740e xDrive version is being dropped and replaced now with a 745e xDrive version, which improves the power from 322 horsepower to 389, and torque jumps from 369 pound-feet to 442 pound-feet. 0 to 60 is now 4.9 seconds versus, I believe, 5.1 before. The regular 740i model, the non-plug-in hybrid version, is staying the same and carrying over. And then the twin-turbo V8 750i version is also getting upgraded with 80 more horsepower. Very beefy jump there for a total of 523 horsepower now, and it also gets 74 more pound-feet of torque for 553 pound-feet now. 0 to 60 is only 3.9 seconds for that one. So, that one will keep up with that little Z4, which is pretty impressive. And if you want even more power, they're still going to be offering the 600 horsepower twin-turbo V12 M760i version as well. And that also carries over unchanged. There isn't any pricing for these models yet, but, expected to be very similar to the current pricing. But anyway, they said they're going to be going on sale in April. So cool to see that. Other German car news here is that Mercedes has revealed the pricing for the 2019 A-Class. Now, this is just the A220, the CLA. That pricing is going to be coming later. That's a separate thing. But for the A220 with front-wheel drive, they're going to be starting at $33,495. If you want all-wheel drive, that's $2,000 extra, so that puts you again $35,500. Like most German cars, though, it's I actually configured one online. You can do the same. It'll easily be well into the 40s with options. So it's cheap. But, it's not that much cheaper than a C-Class if you take it easy on options on a C-Class or something. But it is very, very nice. It has that all-new interior and stuff. So, anyway, cool to see the pricing on that. McLaren has revealed the 600 LT Spider this week. And so, it's the same awesome specs as the hardtop version, being 220 pounds lighter than the non-LT Spider, with a dry weight of 2,859 pounds. Has the same 592 horsepower and 457 pound-feet of torque from its 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8. Same 2.8 second 0 to 60 time as the Coupe 2, and the same rigidity thanks to that monocell 2 chassis. The engine has an ignition cut feature in sport mode that helps the 7-speed dual clutch to shift faster whilst delivering a dramatic aural crack from the top exit exhausts, which sounds glorious. In addition to having the exhaust just being right behind your head with the roof off, having it also crack and pop just as the cherry on top. So very, very much hoping I get to drive one of those someday. There's also an inertia push feature that somehow boosts acceleration in track mode, although I didn't see any specifics given as far as exactly how, because there isn't any kind of hybrid tech or anything, so I don't know. But the top can go up and down and up to 25 miles per hour. I think it's the same as the normal Spider version. And anyway, ordering is open now for those with a starting price of $256,500. And it also, you can see it gets seats from the Senna as an option if you want them. But those look about as comfortable as roller coaster seats to me. So I would probably pass on that personally. Ford this week made a few big announcements. The first couple come thanks to Jim Farley, who's the president of global markets for Ford. This was while speaking at an automotive conference in Detroit. And so the first report here comes from the Detroit Free Press that's reporting that Farley said that they're going to be electrifying the F-Series battery electric and hybrid. So we knew a hybrid was coming. I think they announced that a year or two ago. We still haven't seen it yet, but should be coming very soon. But the fully battery electric version is a little bit of a surprise. I think, they said they want to kind of stay ahead of Tesla, who's also planning a truck. And they said, I think the range that was given was somewhere between a $70,000, $80,000 truck or something like that. So, I mean, they're just continuing to skyrocket the price of these trucks. It's crazy. And obviously there weren't any details given or anything, just the fact that it is coming. And so that's cool. Also, other Ford truck news here is Mr. Farley mentioned, according to Auto Guide, about a new Super Duty that he basically confirmed that it's going to be coming to the Chicago Motor Show next month. And that's not a big surprise. We kind of were expecting it there. I think Chevy's going to be showing theirs new heavy-duty trucks there as well. And so anyway, he also added some interesting tidbits, though, in addition to, of course, the F-250 and 350s coming. He added, everyone loves the Raptor, but with the new Super Duty, we got another new version that no one's ever seen. Not a Raptor, but something different. And so that's pretty interesting that the Auto Guide's reporting that. So I don't know, what this could be if it's not a Raptor, but I'm sure it's going to be some type of off-road version to compete with a Power Wagon that Ram has. I think that's kind of what they're eyeing and how successful those have been for Ram. Auto Guide suggested that Ford could call it the Highboy, which was a name from the 60s and 70s used on those heavy-duty trucks that were a little more off-road ready and were able to have the bigger tires and stuff like that. So that would fit in, since the Ram Power Wagon is also a historical name for them. And Ford does like doing some retro naming stuff as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to see that. And I'm sure see more next month for that. Ford also announced their partnership with Volkswagen, the two of them together, their new global alliance. And so there's not too much that goes into it so far. I mean, I'm sure there's some smaller stuff. But basically, for right now, the only certain things are that Volkswagen gets access to the next-gen Ranger platform, which is coming in 2022, and they're going to use that for their Amarok truck, which is going to be for international markets. Volkswagen said they're not planning on selling that here in the States. But the Ranger, of course, will be getting an all-new next-gen version, obviously, coming in 2022. And that makes sense, considering I know the new Ranger right now is brand new, but it's already pretty old for the rest of the world. We just finally got it here in the States. But it's been around for several years. That's why it has, a little bit of a dated interior and stuff. And so, it sounds like that's only going to last for, maybe 2 or 3 years here. And then we'll have the new version coming in 2022. Although if that's calendar year, then I guess the Ranger could last potentially like 4 model years or something. But anyway, they also, in addition to them, Volkswagen getting the Ranger, they're also going to get a full-size Transit van to sell in 2023 to European commercial customers, I believe, just those for now. And Ford in 2023, what they're going to be getting is the small Volkswagen Caddy van, which is, I guess, going to be like a replacement for the Transit Connect. But I don't know I think that's just for Europe as well, that, they'll be using that Ford badged Volkswagen. And Ford and Volkswagen have also agreed to explore potential collaborations on EVs, autonomous vehicles, and mobility services, but they didn't say there's any kind of agreement set, just that they're exploring that. But there could be something underway already. We'll have to see on that. But the main idea that's been going around is rumored that Ford is going to be licensing the MEB platform, the EV platform that Volkswagen's developing, and using that in their own vehicles. And again, it would just be the platform. That platform is like a skateboard platform. They can just put any kind of body on. That's another thing for everyone complaining about the Supra sharing a platform with the BMW. Like, all these EVs are going to be driving nearly the same. They're all going to have a skateboard-like platform with the motors and the batteries all built in, and you just drop a body on it. It's going to be like a Lego car. You're just going to put different bodies on, and that's about it. They're all going to deliver power the same way. They're all going to, just be instantaneous torque, which is great, but it's like there's going to be so much less differentiation in vehicles 10 years from now. So, get ready. If you think it's bad now with the Supra and the BMW, just wait till everything drives the same. You'll have different power levels, of course, but they'll all be silent for the most part, a little electrical whirring maybe, and that's it. So, anyway, I'll get over this little tangent, I promise. Anyway, so there's that as far as Volkswagen. Volkswagen had some of their own news this week, though, speaking of all that electric stuff. They announced they're going to be investing $800 million into a new plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to build EVs, and the first one being the production version of the ID. Cross, which we saw in concept form, and so that's going to be coming, in about 2022 is when, and that's when this whole plant is supposed to start producing vehicles. 2022. They're also saying it's going to create 1,000 new jobs whenever they start producing cars there as well, and there will be other EVs probably built there, not just this one, but I think that's the first one we're getting here in the States. So anyway, interesting to see that, and great news for Chattanooga. Another EV that was teased at Detroit was Cadillac. They have this new EV crossover they showed 2 pictures of. They don't have a name for it yet, but it was just shown during the XT6 reveal as a concept version of something that's going to be coming in a few years. But it's going to be their first EV in their plan to make Cadillac the main Tesla competitor within GM eventually. They will still have gasoline stuff for a while. We do know that a CT5 is coming, and that's going to have gas engines, most likely use this Blackwing engine from the CT6V and stuff. So there will be still some stuff, but it sounds like half of Cadillac at least will be going in this EV direction for a while. Anyway, but they also said there's no official specs or anything yet. So, this is just a concept just to show the design direction they're going in. But they did say it would come in both 2-wheel drive and all-wheel drive versions whenever it is available. Not sure if that'd be front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. We'll have to wait and see. Some other Cadillac news, though, for something coming actually this year, is that they announced pricing for the 2019 CT6V, and ordering has also opened for those too. It's going to be starting at $89,785, and that's right around like the pricing for the CTSV. Obviously, that's way faster, but it's also a smaller, less luxurious car than the CT6. So seems like a pretty good price, I think, honestly, especially when you consider you have stuff like the S63 AMGs and stuff going for way more money. The CT6 has always been a great value in my opinion, and this continues to be the case with this one as well. So it has that Cadillac exclusive 4.2 liter twin turbo V8, the Blackwing one it's called, with 550 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque, combined with a 10-speed automatic and all-wheel drive. And so like all Vs, it also comes with 2 days at the V Performance Academy, which I actually partook in back in 2017. I did that program. It's actually, I've done, several driving programs now, these, driver education programs, and that one is actually the best one, hands down, that I've done. It was so educational, really gave me so much more confidence behind the wheel, both on track and off, and really just a great program. So anyway, that's included also. That's for any V you buy from Cadillac, you get that program, which is awesome. And other things, though, here in regards to the CT6 is we have some really good news that Cadillac's president told Automotive News that the CT6 actually isn't getting killed off after all. I guess originally, so the plant that's building the CT6 is getting killed off, and so everyone just assumed the CT6 was going with it. But really, in the press release, they just got it wrong. They were supposed to say that they're moving CT6 production. Instead, they just said, here's all the vehicles getting killed off. So that actually is incorrect, and so they are going to be having the plant, it's going to go somewhere else where they're going to produce CT6s. They just say they're exploring production alternatives, but they haven't announced exactly where it would be yet. But I think that's fantastic news because the CT6 is a great vehicle. The refresh looks great. The V version is going to be awesome. And so I'm glad to see they're going to continue to live on. And we'll just have to wait and see where. Obviously, it's still a little touch and go until they actually have a new plant located and confirmed. But at least it sounds like they'll be around for a while, which is great news. Also, there was a few other EV concepts shown at Detroit by Nissan and Infiniti, and I didn't think they were worthy of their own videos, so I just wanted to bundle them here. First is Nissan has showed off this IMs Concept, which is what Nissan is calling an elevated sports sedan. And so obviously this is going to influence future styling for them and the design direction they're going. But it also, could be something they could potentially build, obviously in a much more toned down version someday. Nissan claims, they say it has a 115 kilowatt hour battery powering both front and rear motors for all-wheel drive. Those motors, they're claiming, make a combined horsepower of 483 and 590 pound-feet of torque, and will supposedly have 380 miles of range. And like most concept cars, it claims to be autonomous as well, but still lets the driver drive too, which is good. But I'm not sure any details on all that. It also uses Nissan's invisible to visible tech, which I actually talked about in the last week's weekly update. With it's like a huge heads-up display that seems very distracting in the way they at least portrayed it. But maybe it'll be better if they actually do incorporate it into a production vehicle someday. Also, Infiniti has shown their EV concept here called the QX Inspiration Concept, and so it shows again what styling direction they could use for a future EV crossover. And Infiniti did say they do have some type of mid-sized EV SUV coming. Again, it could be like the QX50, just an EV version or something like that. And this one, they didn't give any kind of details as far as battery or power or anything, but it could use the same components as that Nissan potentially. I mean, that would probably be overkill for an Infiniti mid-sized, soccer mom vehicle, but they of course could tone it down, but could have pretty good range if they can manage to squeeze that battery pack in it. And so other things, it has this interior with this wide display across like 2/3 of the dash there, and another screen in the steering wheel, very similar to what we saw on the Byton. Again, not sure how much of that would make it to production, but anyway, I think the concept looks pretty good though overall, and again, just very dramatic for a concept vehicle like they always are. So we'll have to wait and see what a production version ends up being, and I think they said their goal is around 2022 as well for this. So telling you, all these EVs are coming, and they're coming fast. The last news this week here is a report from Reuters that Geely is going to be building a new $1.3 billion manufacturing facility in China, and that Geely's Lotus project is one of the vehicles to be built there, supposedly. So another source told Reuters that the plant would only build the SUV in the beginning. So we'll have to wait and see. It's uncertain, I guess, as far as what Lotus models would get built in China, if any at all, and how long they'd be built there for. So it's still very, very up in the air, I guess, about all that kind of stuff. But right now, Lotus produces all their vehicles in very low numbers. I think they sold like 1,300 vehicles last year. They produce them all in Norfolk, United Kingdom, in their little factory there. And so it's possible that the sports car production could remain in the UK, but maybe the SUV they have planned, that we saw a patent image that leaked out, I think, a year or two ago, that could just get built in China. Or, we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to hear that they're at least working on that, and hopefully, Lotus can continue to get to a better position very soon. Anyway, the last little thing I do want to mention, not really news, but for any of you that do love the old Top Gear and Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond, the Grand Tour is going to be starting up this weekend. I think actually Friday night is when it's premiering here on the 18th. And this isn't sponsored or anything. I just genuinely love the show. I think it's hilarious and very, very entertaining. And so if you have Amazon Prime, you can stream it as well. The first episode, I think, should be going live here on Friday. So after you're done enjoying this, you'll also, by the way, if you want to, see all my coverage from Detroit, I do have a playlist, and you can just start the playlist, and, it'll be about 30 minutes or so of footage from all the different other vehicles that I covered at Detroit. You can watch that too if you want, if you missed it and didn't have time during the week. But yes, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts on everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.